Hello, hello. It's Elizabeth Busby here, and welcome to Discerning Marriage. Today we have a very special guest, someone that I just got to spend incredible time at the Jubilee with. But actually, this was booked before we knew that we were both going to the Jubilee. So it just feels like a special, nod from the Lord that we get to do this, even though it was scheduled before. We are going to be talking about the discernment story of this precious couple, and we're going to be collecting wisdom along the way from the special things that they've learned as they've been married and a couple awesome things they've shared on social media. Please join me in welcoming Eliza and Will Monts to the podcast. Hey, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's nice to be.
Such a joy. All right. I would love it if y'all would give a little introduction to yourselves for people who don't yet know you on social media. I'm sure they'll all be following afterwards because your page is just so life-giving. But for anyone who isn't familiar, please introduce both of you, kind of what you do, how long you've been married, etc., and then we'll jump on in.
I'm Eliza. I am the voice and face behind Elizawritesthings on Instagram. As the time we're recording in August of 2025, I've been blogging for over 5 years on Instagram, and then I also have a Substack as well that I post to, and it's been a joy and delight all along the way. My biggest message online is that Jesus loves you just because you exist, and I wish everyone world believed that. Men too, but I'm very much a girl's girl, and I create content with the girls in mind. And it's very much centered around our marriage and our regular life. Also another idea that's really important to me to share is that being Catholic is normal. I really wish everybody understood that it's not some weird thing that only a few people do, or that you have to be a really, really niche and maybe strange kind of person to be hopelessly in love with the Lord. It's important to me to show how normalized Catholicism is, because it is normal. Holiness is our normal and natural state. That intimacy with Jesus is our normal and natural state. And so I very intentionally share about what the Lord's been doing in my prayer life, as well as lip gloss I really like, or fashion. I'm a big fashion person. The fashion that I just enjoy, the creativity and personal style, engaging in. And I love painting my nails and all these normal girlhood, life of a 20-something-year-old kinds of things, but knit together very intentionally with the beauty and the fullness of life to be found in relationship with Jesus expressed in the Catholic faith. It's a very, very intentional thing there. And I'm blessed to have been married for a little over 2 years to Will. I'll let you talk about yourself now.
I'm Will. I'm a sailor. I don't put anything on the internet, but if you want to see me, you can look at Eliza. I'm there sometimes.
There often. And what does it mean when you say that you're a sailor? What is your job?
I'm a captain of a sailboat. And I sail. I sail here in Charleston.
Cool, it's so cool.
I sail here in Charleston during the season here, and in the off season I sail.
Which is winter.
Yeah, the off season, which is the winter time. I sail all over the southeast coast and the Bahamas and the Caribbean. And yeah.
And
I don't put anything on the internet, so you can't see it.
Every so often you'll post some sweet sailing videos of the two of you, which is just so fun. My husband was a sailor in college. He sailed competitively, so I just have such a fascination with sailing because I had no experience whatsoever until I started dating him and learned how to sail with him. And yeah, it just is so, it feels so like romanticized to me, right? Getting to be out on the water. I read a lot of books, so maybe that's part of it. But getting to be like out on the water, you're not at a desk for a 9 to 5. Like, this is how you make a living for your family. You get to do something you love so much. That's like so creative and life-giving for you, I bet. That's so cool.
He's a rare person whose job is what he loves.
Yeah, it is very, I feel very fortunate to get to do something I really love. You know, of course it is work also, but it is really cool. I feel very connected to the Lord when I'm sailing, because you're very much, especially when I go offshore, whether I'm delivering a boat or racing or something, you feel very small out, you know, if you're 1,000 miles out in the ocean, all of a sudden you feel very small because the ocean is huge. And it really makes you consider how just how powerful God is. Something I always tell people is I always see, every time I look at the ocean, I feel like I'm looking at the face of God, because the ocean is always extremely, whether it's a calm day or a stormy day, it's always extremely beautiful. And it's also always extremely powerful. And so, like, you know, on a calm day, the waves aren't that big or whatever, but you still have these strong currents and stuff. And on a more stormy day, you have these huge waves. And so sometimes the power is really subtle and sometimes it's really dramatic. But it is always really, really beautiful. And no matter what, it always keeps me afloat. And so that is, I do kind of see the face of God in the ocean.
Being buried in his mercy.
Yeah.
Oh, so great. And I think like all of nature sings of the glory of God, but there's something special about water to the heart of God, because so much of Christ's life and ministry was around the water. You know, like so many of his big, like he called his apostles off the water. He did the walking on water, awesome thing. You know, like there were just so, like water was such a big part of his life. I don't know if you'd call what they were doing sailing. Would you call it sailing? What the apostles were doing? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Fishing,
yeah.
sort of
they were
fish,
on
kind of.
the Sea of Galilee, which
They could
is
have
really
been rowing.
They were probably sailing. The Sea of Galilee is really just a lake. But
Okay.
I mean, they definitely were. It's a very similar thing. And also, if you think about it, like, I go a lot farther out in the ocean and stuff than they did, but I also have a lot more stuff to help me, like
Fact.
GPS and stuff like that,
A motor.
than they did. Yeah, and an engine, you know, and GPS and a life raft and all kinds of stuff. I've definitely been out there before, really wishing that Jesus would wake up and come up on deck and calm the storm.
Calm the sea. Oh man, I bet it makes the gospel just come alive. Jesus is showing up in the GPS. He's giving you the his hand in the modern technology.
He shows up every 6 hours when I get a new weather forecast. And he's like, "Don't sail over there.
Don't go over there. Turn your boat." It just is. I had never made that connection until you were just talking about it. But like, yeah, the Lord's actual life on earth was really tied up with boats in the water, and like how beautiful that you do get to do that with your life and encounter him in a way that was like, you know, so similar to his own lived experience. Not everyone gets that opportunity. That's really neat.
I don't think it would be incredulous to say that Jesus probably knew how to sail. What do you think?
Ooh.
He probably did, or at least he knew people who did,
And would go with them.
and would. I mean, he sailed across the Sea of Galilee, at least on one occasion.
I love to think about what Jesus was up to in his 20s before he entered public ministry.
Yes,
I think it is realistic to say even if he wasn't doing the sailing, he was probably a few times at least riding along with others who were sailing, or at least rowing a boat, or that he was having campfires with his friends on the beach, and cooking out. I mean, he cooks out fish after he
sure does.
Resurrects.
He knows how to do it.
He cooks out fish with a campfire on the beach.
So cool.
It's not incredulous to think he had done that at least one time before.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, as a form of leisure and community. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's fun to think about.
All the fun, holy leisure things that he would have done when he was an adult, but before he was in public ministry, is really cool to think about.
Well, and stuff like that really ties into what Eliza was saying about, you know, being like a quote unquote normal person. Like, I think we see Jesus and the apostles and the saints, and we see their incredible and extraordinary holiness, which is amazing. But we also forget that, like, Jesus was also like,
he ate
a normal guy who was normal friend who had normal friends, and the apostles were like normal people, and you know, they did all these amazing, heroic, holy things, but they also had normal lives that just haven't been written about so much because they were perfectly normal. So why would anyone write about them?
Yeah,
sure.
That's a good point.
And two, like, I mean, that's part of what, especially at his home, when he went home and they were like, "I'm sorry, what? Like, you're just Joseph's son. Like, what are you talking about that you are also the Messiah?" It's like, because he lived such a normal life, people had such a hard time believing like he was extra special. I mean, this is a fun train of thought that I didn't think we were going to get on, but
there's a lot to unpack there.
And I think too, this is something that could be really beneficial for our target audience to pray into some of this normal stuff about Jesus. Because I think when you're living just a normal life and you're working and you're doing your chores and you're hanging out with your friends and longing to be in your vocation or whatever, it can seem like God is far away. But if we're actually using our prayer time to enter into what his life was like when he walked the earth, like even starting with something that you love, like for you guys, like a boat, water, like start with water. What was water like in God's life and travel backwards into his 20s and imaginative prayer and things like that. I mean, it just makes my heart swell with love for him, right? It's like such a real person who loves us so much. Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Okay. So this is also not a question I was intending to ask, but you said that you started your Instagram blog 5 years ago. Y'all been married for 2 years. So, Will, did you know that this was a part of her life when you chose her? Like, did you know that this?
Yeah, Eliza and I have been friends. We've been friends for much longer than that, actually. Exactly when we met differs depending on who you ask.
I saw the picture, you guys. I saw the picture on your Instagram that you were like, this might be me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I found that in I used to have to do like a summer journal for summer homework in school, which was so stupid, but
that's
but cute, coming in handy.
I think it is stupid that kids have to do summer homework. I don't think that's mean to say. I think it's a stupid thing to make kids do, but maybe stupid's not the right word.
Yeah, I don't like that word.
I just think kids should be able to enjoy their summer without having to do homework.
Anyway.
Did you do it right before you started school though? Like, were you doing it over the summer or did you do it like the night before?
Different summers, it was different, but if you would read my journal entries, they were all so bare minimum. I think we were required to write 3 sentences, and I would not write more than 3 sentences.
And you had to include a picture.
And you had to include a picture, and that picture I did print out, but most of the pictures were just stick figures drawn in
my
pencil.
Goodness. You just like drew. You're like, no, I'm not doing this.
I probably spent less than 2 minutes on the whole thing, but that one. Eliza and I were flipping through my old summer journals. I was showing her, and I pulled up that picture, and I was like, hey, that actually looks a lot like you.
Yeah, that girl has, for those who are listening and not sure what we're talking about, we found this picture dating 2012. And we both grew up going to the summer camp that we worked at in college summers and became friends at. And so... And he's only a year older than me, and so it's not impossible that we were there at the same time because they sent kids by general age group.
Kind of batches of age groups.
Yeah, batches of age groups for a week. And Will is in the foreground next to a sandcastle he was very proud of building, and then I'm a little bit in the back. And I'm just standing there, I think, talking to some of the counselors, and it might not be me, but this girl is standing the way I stood, kind of has the same legs as I do, or as I did back then, has her hair into pigtail braids, which I was into at that time, and has enormous like bug-eyed sunglasses, which I was also really into at that time. And wearing an outfit that
it's a disposable camera.
Yeah, wearing the kind of outfit, I don't remember that outfit, but it is the kind of thing I would have worn. And so it is not impossible that it's me.
That's the cutest thing. So how old would y'all have been in that picture?
If it's 2012, I would have been 13 and he was 14.
So cute. But y'all didn't connect. Okay, sorry, yeah. Finish your story and then we'll go into the love story.
So anyways, to answer your question, we became friends
officially in 2019.
Yeah, in the summer of 2019, we were working out there at the summer camp. And
I started my blog in 2020.
That was when we became really good friends. And Eliza started her blog in 2020, but it wasn't really what it is now.
No.
And I wouldn't say you intended it to be what it is now necessarily. Eliza writes very nice poetry, and she, I guess, wanted a place to put it. So she made this Instagram account, and initially it was really only...
I would just screenshot poetry I had written on Google Docs about Jesus and post that. And then within a few months, though, I started experimenting with the art form of, a picture of myself, and then there's a really long essay, the poetically written kind of essay in the caption. And then it became, and then we got reels on Instagram, and so it became a lot of video content as well. And now I still write poetry for myself personally at times, but I've really found that artistic good thing going on in writing essays coupled on with either with a video or a post, or honestly, I think my captions are a lot shorter than they used to be. I'm putting my essays in Substack.
Yeah, your captions are definitely shorter than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, one of the very first experiments of photos and stuff that Eliza did was from a little sailing excursion that her and I took when we were friends. So if you scroll way, way, way back on Elizawritesthings,
I didn't remember that.
you can find a photo of me.
Oh, yeah, you were mentioning how romantic it is to be on a sailboat, and that's how I just was like, Will's the best.
Yeah, at our wedding, our priest in the homily, he was like, yeah, Will, you had a lot of help being on the beach and sailboats, sunsets.
And he was the best sailor on our camp staff, so he was in that capacity, you were the top dog. Very impressive.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's so cute. So cute. Okay, I'm going to move into my... Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Did you have something?
No, I just was making sure that I answered your question you asked, but I think we did.
You did. Yeah, I was asking if you knew that this was going to be such a big part of your life, that like your stories were going to end up on the internet as a married couple, and if that was something that you were like, yeah, I'm totally down with, or if it was something that developed as you guys, after you'd already chosen her, and then y'all decided together, like, okay, this will be kind of an outpouring, an apostolate of our relationship.
It definitely, by the time we were friends for a long time. By the time we started actually dating, I would say I definitely knew what Elizawritesthings was. But it was much smaller at that time, and I will be honest, I did not expect it to grow into what it is now. And I would say I am definitely on the internet more than I ever thought I would be. But, we've decided together throughout the whole time kind of what direction to take it and how much to share and all. And
yeah, I keep our private life really, really on guard. I did not post about Will's existence until we got engaged as an effort to keep our private life on guard. It was funny to just hard launch a fiance out of nowhere when we got engaged.
You should have waited until we got married. That would have been so funny.
That would have been really funny.
More intense, yeah.
And yeah, I'm careful about honoring our privacy and not bashing Will on the internet too. It makes me really sad when women publicly bash their husbands. Like every husband is imperfect because they're all sinners, but just resolve it. Yeah, and so am I. Just resolve it.
Yeah, also you are. They just don't have a platform to talk about it. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I could post to my 100 followers about how terrible you are.
Your own experience of the hardships of marriage, right?
Yeah.
They would all be like, you're an idiot.
They're all my friends, so they'd be like, Will, stop.
Stop. She's delightful. Yeah, yes. And that's a good point too, is like the people who know and love you and love your marriage and are fighting for you and wanting you guys to succeed are not going to tolerate any sort of bashing of your spouse. But the problem is that women have these massive followings who aren't necessarily pro their marriage. And so they'll do this husband bashing and get support for the husband bashing, as opposed to what a real friend would do, which is knock it off. Like, you have got to stop. Like, let's help you guys figure out what's going on here instead of airing all of this agony to the internet. Yeah, I'm so glad you don't do that. I'm so glad you don't do that. And I hope people who follow you are like, oh yeah, if I do, yes, if I do that, I should stop. Okay, well, I want to say one more thing before I kind of get into our discernment story questions is I don't even remember how you came across my page, but when I first started following you, it was really the fashion stuff that I was like, she's precious. And she has all of these really sweet Catholic nods to her clothes, and fashion is totally not my area. Like, if I could wear a habit as a layperson, I totally would. Like, it was one of the big pulls to religious life. Oh my goodness. You were doing all those fit checks at the Vatican with the nuns and their habits. And I was like, I'm so jealous. You did.
And
you did do me, but it was more complicated because I didn't have a habit that I could just tell you about. It just was so beautiful to see all the beautiful stories of their habits. Anyways, so fashion is not an area that I personally love or that I'm good at, but I love watching women who are good at it. So I loved it. I followed you for that. And then I don't know if it was the algorithm or what, but it was a while before I saw you post something about your marriage and about your faith. And I was so delighted. I was like, oh, she must be a fashion influencer who like pops in every now and then to talk about her marriage and this beautiful relationship that they have. And then, of course, the more that I followed you, the more I was like, no. She's being very intentional about the way that she's going about this. But it was such a delight to me to see that it's back to this like normal life thing, right? Like fashion is a very normal thing. It crosses any sort of religious boundary, barrier, whatever. Like we can appreciate beauty and the art form of beautiful fashion without having any sort of love for the Lord. But then, you draw in all of these women who are drawn to the beauty, but then you give them this incredible truth about what love can look like, right? When you don't lower your standard, when you pursue or are pursued by an amazing man, you guys have an incredible standard for your life and your holiness and your chastity, your integrity as people. And then that love pours out. Like you can see the joy. I mean, my favorite posts are the ones where you're together because you just light up. Like you're a beautiful woman. And when he's with you, you're like exceptionally, like you just light up under his gaze. And it is so wonderful. Y'all had this cute little post where you were like, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was like, is this like a normal average thing or is this exceptionally better? And every single thing, he was like, no, that's normal average. No, that's normal average. And just your smile.
Yeah.
Oh, so cute. So cute. Anyways, so I just love that you do that. And I would love to hear like from either of you, any thoughts on that, any feedback you get or what it's like to post that about those awesome things about your relationship, your marriage.
I was grateful you noticed how it's that and affirmed that what I'm trying to communicate is being communicated there are discussions about and content about fashion. There's also discussions and content about marriage and how women deserve to be treated in marriage. But the goal is for it to all point back to the Lord, but in a way that feels subtle. And we need people online who are also, and in real life, who are very pointed of here's Catholic theology, here's apologetics. Here's some really like brainy and high level stuff. But my gift is just not apologetics. And I know theology, but I am not a theologian. But I see, in a sense, a mission field in just showing the women in my general age range that, like I said in the beginning, Jesus loves them just because they exist. And there is so much delight to be had in knitting relationship with the Lord in the regular normal life that you're already living. And it doesn't mean permissiveness of sin that you are stuck in. But it also doesn't mean, just because you become Catholic means that you automatically now need to become a religious sister if you don't feel called to do that. Like the Lord calls us to do the certain things. And we are both really passionate that if you are a lay person, you need to be generous in being friends and making community with and evangelizing those who do not know the Lord. We are not cloistered nuns or monks, and that is not the vocation we chose. And so I guess I don't want to say, I guess it is a hot take. I don't think it should be hot though. I think it's just normal that if a lay vocation is what the Lord has called you to, that probably is not going to mean cloistering yourself. And it's really important that we are the light of Christ for everyone that we encounter. And a way that I can see myself, a way that I feel the Lord calling me to step into that role is, like you were just pointing to, showing a natural knitting of relationship with the Lord expressed in the Catholic faith with normal life stuff that women in our 20s experience. What do you want to say about that?
I think you answered it pretty well. I think it's interesting online in the online world because you have a lot of Catholic voices online that are like talking about theology and like all of that stuff, and that is great. Obviously, of course we need people who are really well versed in theology and stuff like that. But I would say Eliza and I are well versed in theology enough to be able to live a life as a Catholic person, but
and know why
we believe what we believe and all. But like we're both not really people who can like
debate
or like I would say very strongly defend it, not because we don't believe it or because it's a weak belief or something, just because that's not
we
the
don't
gift
have
that we
debate
have.
skills.
And that's okay. Like, you don't, like, I converted, and a lot of converts, when they convert, they very much feel like they have to have the right answer all the time about everything.
For many converts.
Not all converts. I'm not trying to make a sweeping generalization, but for many people it is that way. And that's not a bad desire necessarily, but you don't have to. Like, if you convert to Catholicism, or if you're just a cradle Catholic, like, you don't have to spend all your time
making
reading
sure that
church
you
fathers and all. It's a good thing to do, but
making
you also
sure
can
you
do normal things.
Sharpen your debate tactics, because not everyone is gifted with debate skills or with debate interests. You and I don't have debate skills or debate interests. And so God has not given us those or called us in that direction, and that is fine. But He has called us in a direction of, let's show people the Lord's love really gently, and with, hopefully it communicates a lot of charity, and make it look really, really attractive. Not because Catholicism needs excellent branding, but because it already is attractive, and Catholicism and life with the Lord is already objectively attractive. And at the same time, but those of us, especially online, can make it look less attractive when we speak with viperous tongues and are really antagonistic and aggressive. But we lean into that attractiveness when we meet others with charity.
And that's one
and
of the
with
things
joy.
that really, and joy. Yes, absolutely. The joy that you have together is like, so like the joy in your posts when you're together is just so magnified. And that too, like, I think people get this, they have this misunderstanding of marriage, that it's ugly, that it's, so hard, that there's no joy in it, that it's like, why would you even do it? It's so much more fun to not be tied down. And the joy that y'all have in the post where you're together, where you're talking about your marriage, or you're dancing, or, like, it's just so, you're doing cute little like fashion things where he's like admiring your clothes. It's just so sweet. And it makes it look really attractive. And that's one of the things that stuck out to me at the Jubilee. Like, so I am very niche. I do theology online. That's like that's where I feel called, and I love it. But I noticed just in my own interactions online, and especially reflecting on all the things with the Jubilee, that a lot of the people who find me are either objectively for Catholicism and want more formation, or anti-Catholicism and just want to like tear me apart. And there's not as much of an opportunity to evangelize, right? Like, I'm giving education, and that's great, and there's a place for that. But the work that you and the other creators who really are kind of out in the deep doing things that aren't objectively Catholic, even though we know everything has, a touch of the Lord in it. Beauty, God is beauty. And so fashion and beauty, we know that. But it seems more detached from religion on the surface. And you have an opportunity to show the love of God and the beauty of marriage to someone who maybe has never seen a couple in their 20s who voluntarily chose to get married young and are happy about it. You have the opportunity to encounter someone in a way that maybe they've never encountered the Lord before. I mean, that's one of the things that really struck me. The power of that in those talks at the Jubilee was like, you have the ability to introduce Christ to people, which is a totally different, it's a totally different way that of evangelizing than what I'm doing. And I love it. I love that there's like so much space for all of this, and that you've particularly carved out a niche. Yes.
And we need all of it. We need all of it so much.
Yes. So lovely. Okay, let's jump into your discernment story. And there are a couple things I'm hoping that will come up. Otherwise, I'll just toss them at the end. Okay, I want to hear from each of you how you knew you were called to marriage, broadly speaking.
I discerned religious life on two separate occasions. One was definitely more casual, because I was only a senior in high school. Speaking with the Dominican Sisters of Saint Cecilia, who and it was one of those things where it was very, very lovely, and they also wanted me to go to college and like revisit when I was older, and that was fine.
Prudent.
And then my junior year of college, I also dated people in between these things. My junior year of college, I discerned more seriously with the Sisters of Life, and attended a discernment retreat. It was about half a week long. And I was so excited to go up to New York, and then it was COVID, and so it was online, which was sad. But there were still so many incredible graces I still hold on to from that retreat that were communicated even through Google Meets and YouTube talks. And it was some of my very happiest memories in my life, honestly, which is a testament that the Holy Spirit will do what he needs to do regardless of if it's in person or through the internet. He will still, the internet cannot contain the Holy Spirit because nothing can.
Well said. Wow.
It was incredible. So, I mean, you can see me smiling just even thinking about that over 5 years ago. Incredible, so beautiful, amazing, all the things. And at the finish of it, but after the finish of it, and I talked with their vocations director and my spiritual director, who I am blessed to be able to still see, and they both advised me, and I felt good about this as well, of, okay, you're a junior, finish college, graduate, and then we will go from there after you graduate. And I also felt good about. That felt really intuitive anyway. And so I spent the next year just living life. But then after I graduated, I went to work at our summer camp one last time, before I became a real adult. And that summer is when Will asked me out on it. So this is now summer of 2021. And that summer, Will asked me out on a date. And I had the Sisters of Life and still on my mind of, okay, this is a possibility, but it was just, Will asked me on one date. I went on the one date, and it was really wonderful. The second date I took it very much in little baby steps of, okay, this one date, he's not promising me marriage. Like, I'm not throwing the Sisters of Life out the window forever. It's just one date. But it was positive. And then date number 2 was positive, and date number 3. And then it didn't take very many. It did not, especially after having been friends for years at that point. Yeah, it did not take us very long to look at each other and be like, oh, Jesus is calling us to marriage. And it wasn't, there were times in my life where, especially when I was younger, where I was really stressed about the idea of choosing a vocation and, oh my gosh, how will I know what God is calling me to? I just lean into anxiety, unfortunately. And in actual practicality, it was, oh, he just makes it really obvious. And it's not that I could have messed up his will either. Like, if I had noticed him calling me to, and I also should preface, all of this is built on top of already having prayer lives and really deep friendships with Jesus. It's definitely difficult to understand and to notice and see where Jesus is leading us if we aren't listening to him in our daily lives through prayer anyway. But that foundation already established, I found, after all was said and done in practice of discerning vocations, he just made it obvious. And another thing I also misunderstood when I was younger was, I think I had a fear that Jesus would call me into a vocation that was like sad and terrible and a lot of suffering and no fun and everything. And like, there is always going to be suffering in life because we live on this side of Eden. But I don't think when I was younger, I really understood that the desires of my own heart were put there by God. And it's not that what I want is always contrary to what Jesus wants. Our desires for sin are not things we should pursue, but our desire, like a vocation, is a neutral thing. We know that not one vocation is objectively holier than the other. The best vocation you can be in is the one that Jesus is calling you into. And so
Amen.
It took actual lived experience to realize, oh, it is okay for me to date this person because I'm attracted to them and I like them.
Yes, and I want to.
I can use that as, yes, and I can use that as not the guiding light, but a guiding light of, this could be where Jesus is calling me. This could be the vocation Jesus is calling me into. And also backed by encouragement from my friends who attested, yes, Will has really good character. And I had also been able to objectively notice for years of friendship that you had good character. And the Lord, when I say he made it obvious, like he just let the things fall into place and was like, you desire Will, you were attracted to him, you think he's so cute and special and wonderful, and that is just intuitive. And I'm thinking about younger Eliza as I say this, and even younger Eliza, if she could hear what I'm saying now, would probably be like, I still don't understand. That's still stressful.
Yeah.
And
What do I do?
at that point, like, it just, I think there's definitely a lot of maturity that also has to come into play to be able to have that relaxed approach to vocations, because I did not have that kind of relaxation when I was younger, but the Holy Spirit grew me up.
I think also just knowing that it's not like God wants you to discern your vocation successfully. Like, it's not some kind of tricky puzzle that you have to solve.
He's not trying to trick us and be like, ha ha ha.
Trick you. Like, it's Eliza and I like to do crossword puzzles, and we
Cute.
Notoriously can only ever finish the ones that are rated beginner friendly. Like discerning your vocation is not, an expert crossword that's really hard, and if you can't get all the clues exactly right,
then
you're not going to get it.
God
God wants you to discern your vocation, and he's going to help you because he wants you to.
And he's generous.
And something I tell people a lot is, with discernment, I think there's a lot of ways to go about successfully discerning, but I do think you're not going to successfully discern if you just, if you sit and if you think really hard about it.
I feel bad for laughing, but yeah.
Yeah, but like if you just sit and think really hard, like, oh, I have to figure out my vocation, and just sit, in your room or whatever and think really hard about that, like, you're never going to figure it out. But if you just have to go out and do something. Like, if you think maybe the Lord is calling you to marriage, then like,
you got to date people.
Like, the Lord is not going to just one day poof a girl into your life or whatever. And I say a girl because I do think men struggle with this more than women do. But if you think the Lord is calling you to be a priest, like, go speak with.
He's not going to poof ordination out of the sky.
He's not going to poof it.
Director of your diocese, like, maybe you'll speak with him, and throughout the process, you'll learn that, oh, maybe the Lord really isn't calling you to be a priest, or you'll go on some dates and
it's not embarrassing, or you're not a failure or an embarrassment if you spend a few years in a convent and then discern out, or spend a year in a relationship and then discern out. Like, it's not on our timeline, it's on God's timeline.
Yes. And so, okay, I have a point I want to make, but I want to hear what you have to say, Will, about how you knew you were called to marriage, and then I'll circle back to this point. How did you know, Will?
I would say my story is a little bit different from Eliza's, partly because when we met and when we started dating, I wasn't Catholic, and
he was Anglican.
I was Anglican, and Anglicans allow their priests to marry, so you don't really have to discern whether you're called to the priesthood or marriage, because you can do both. And they have a different understanding of the priesthood, which is why it's that way. But Eliza and I have been friends for a long time, and I will say I did never feel called to be a priest,
to be in
any way,
priest.
Even an Anglican priest. Like, I never felt that stirring in my heart. But it was interesting for me. I used to really stress about, I don't want to be alone for my life or whatever. But then it was interesting because I eventually, through prayer and all, I came to a point where I was comfortable with the idea of, like, and Eliza, it's like, this is really sad for you to say, but I don't think so. But I got to the point where I could honestly say, I hope I get married one day, but if I never do, that doesn't mean my life is like a failure or something. Like, I can still lead a full and rich life. And I would say that is kind of my story of discernment, is not so much discerning like, oh, should I get married or should I be a priest, but more letting go of it for myself and being like, if the Lord leads me to get married, obviously I'll be very happy about that. But if the Lord does not lead me to get married and leads me to just be single for my life, then...
Because this is while you were still Anglican.
Because this is before I was Catholic. So I didn't,
He did not have the Catholic...
to me, the idea of going to instead going to seminary or something just wasn't something in my mind because I didn't know about
He did not have the Catholic framework of
Yeah. It was be married or be single. There was no other option.
Yeah. And by the time he converted, we were dating, and so I was right there, and he was already desiring.
So I mean, by the time I finally did convert, we were already dating, and I did not convert for Eliza, but she was
point.
Definitely.
Good distinction.
Yeah, I did not convert for Eliza. Like, she could have dumped me the day after I converted, and I would have been sad, but I wouldn't have, regretted converting or something. But,
or been like, oh, I did this for you.
But that's important. I'm converting back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, Eliza definitely was... The Lord used her to help me along, absolutely. But, I was able to let go of, the stress and the worry of I have to find someone to marry
because my self-worth is in marriage.
Because my self-worth is in marriage. No, I came to the point where I really believed if I do end up being single for my whole life, there would be sadness in that, but also
the Lord would give
give me plenty of joy in other ways that are ways that there are. I mean, there are a lot of blessings of being single that you don't have when you're married. They're just different blessings. And I can truthfully say I was at the point where I really had content and had let go. And then it is very interesting for me personally, relatively shortly after that, Eliza, I was living in Florida at the time, and Eliza came to visit me as a graduation gift from her mom, which I think is a weird thing, weird graduation gift, but her mom swears she wasn't trying to set us up.
I think it's cute.
It is, but I'm like, that is a weird graduation. But one day, I'll never forget, we had just finished watching this conspiracy documentary
about Area 51.
Netflix about Area 51 and a man named Bob Lazar, who is the whistleblower for Area 51.
And I was convinced.
Eliza was so convinced by it, and I'll be honest, I was not really paying attention to it because I was paying attention to Eliza. And after the documentary ended, Eliza stood up in the middle of my living room in my little house on the beach in Florida, and
we had been talking about our dreams for the future.
Yeah, we've been talking about our dreams for the future.
He wanted to be a sailor, and I wanted to be a writer. And I am never, ever, 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 I was never this bold with boys or anything. And I did not even mean it romantically. I meant it strictly pragmatically.
All of a sudden, she looks at me and she goes, if we're still single when we're 35, we should just get married. I think we could have a good life.
And I was literally just thinking we could sail and I could write from a sailboat. I was only looking at it logistically.
Yeah.
And I did not have the love eyes for you yet.
Later, we come to find out Eliza gets seasick, but
No way! But, you can't actually ride on a boat? You can't write?
I've never been offshore.
She can.
Oh, okay.
In the harbor, she's fine, but on our honeymoon, we took a ferry in the Caribbean, and there were some big waves, and she got seasick. But anyways,
it will be. I'm willing to live with
Eliza said that in that moment.
It was boom!
And she didn't mean anything, but it literally was the scales had been peeled off my eyes. In that moment,
the Holy Spirit smacked him on his head.
In that moment, I was like, why in the world would I wait until I was 35?
We're 35. Someone else could snatch her up.
I was getting ready, actually. I was making plans to quit my job, and my plan was to go
hop on a sailboat and sail around the world.
I wanted to work seasonal jobs on big
mega
boats.
Yachts.
Basically, my plan was to work 6 months out of the year on a mega yacht and work and then buy a sailboat and spend the other 6 months of the year just sailing as far as I can get. And then when I run out of money, I would go. And I put that whole plan on hold because I was like, I just knew. I was like, if I don't if I do this and then come back in like 5 years or whatever, and Eliza's married to someone else, I was like, I know that I will regret that forever. So I did that, I came and I took Eliza on some dates, and then, I mean, I knew I wanted to marry her already, but pretty quickly.
But you didn't tell me that.
I did not
bomb me.
tell her that, because that is a bad thing to do.
Typically does
I would
put
have
someone in a corner. Yeah.
Especially because I was in a place of like, he didn't propose to marriage to me. It's just one date. It's okay. It would have been really bad if he loved bombed me on that.
But I would say, so then when I did convert, I did not really have to go through the process of like, I did not have to go through like, should I be a priest or not? Because I had already discerned that. And I do think one last thing I do want to say about this is, for me, it did happen pretty quickly that as soon as I was at a place where I was content with giving my life, giving this over to the Lord, that pretty quickly Eliza came into the picture. But I do think it's important to emphasize that just because it happened quickly for me doesn't mean it would happen.
Your reward.
It doesn't mean it was like my reward, and it doesn't mean that like, as soon as you just submit to God's will or whatever, then all of a sudden a girl will show up. Like, I think it's
you have to actually surrender to Jesus.
Yeah, you have to actually surrender to Jesus, and part of surrendering to Jesus means surrendering to Jesus' time, which might be, I'm sure in many cases, I'm thankful that for me it did not take a long time, but I'm sure that for many people it does, and that's not a bad thing. I want to make sure I don't give people the idea that it was like a reward or something.
Well, here's what's really standing out to me that I love so much. And I am a theologian, so I do look with theologian glasses, but I love that what you guys are saying does not have any theological language. It's just so relatable and accessible. What you are talking about, Will, is true freedom. You were not bound by this idolatry of, I have to have this or I won't be happy. Right. And again, people don't necessarily think that way, like, my desire for marriage is this golden calf, and if I don't have it, I won't be happy. And so I have to get married. But there is in some people's hearts this sense of like, I'll just be miserable if I never find someone, which speaks of a lack of contentment with the Lord. And whether or not it was an actual idolatry in your specific heart, the Lord allowed you to recognize, I can be happy with him. And there'll be a different kind of happiness as a single man than there would be as a husband and a father, but there would be a contentment and a satisfaction in my life, and I could say yes to that. And it was like once you reached that place in your heart, you had the freedom to say yes to marriage because you already had the freedom to say no to it. And I think that sometimes people can be so kind of obsessed with the idea of like marriage and happiness go hand in hand. Like, I can't be single forever. I'll be miserable, whatever. Well, then you can't always give a free yes to that person because you're like, my happiness is going to be dependent on whether or not you're willing to marry me. But you got to a place. Yes. Well, it is. And it can, play that out 5, 10, 15 years down the line and it gets really messy. But you in your singleness, Will, were like, I would be content with the Lord. Like we could make a great life together, he and I, even without any sort of like celibacy vow because you weren't Catholic. You were just like, there could be joy in my life and I would be content with this. And once you were able to have that freedom, he was like, and here you go. Now you can freely say yes to this woman.
It's interesting because I would say that I am happier now married than I was when I was not married. That's true. But it's like the reason I'm happier, it's not that like marriage is this magic thing that makes you happier. It's that when you are living your vocation, when you are living according to God's will, then you are more in tune with the joy of the Lord and things like that. And like that makes you happy. And so, and like, we have a very close friend. We have a very close friend who is in seminary, and he has just always known he wanted to be a priest and all. And like for him, I just can imagine that when he becomes a priest, he'll just be so happy and feel so much joy because of that. And for him, he's a very holy person. I'm sure that, had the Lord called him to marriage, he would have been a very good and holy
And
husband.
Jesus still could call him to marriage.
And Jesus still could call him to marriage, but at least the way it appears right now, it just appears like the priesthood is just so much more of a gift to him.
Yes.
And it's just that, like, the joy and the happiness comes from being with God, no matter where you are or what situation.
Not because there are no longer sufferings, but because we are living in God's will.
Yeah, I mean, there are
Yes,
definitely,
yes.
I love being married to Eliza. It makes me happy. But there are definitely, other, like I said earlier, there are blessings that you have being single that you no longer have when you're married.
Yeah, like your time is your own, and you can hop on a boat and spend an entire year sailing all over the place, and people love you, but they don't care where you are, right? Whereas, like, if you did that now, that would have to be a conversation and a family culture decision, and you could do it. I know families who do it. They take their kids, they sail around the world. Like, it happens, but you have to decide together. Your life and your time aren't your own. You can't just be like, I'm going. She'd be like, pause. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So another thing that has really stood out to me, this like beautiful thread through y'all's discernment, is you individually know who God is. You know who he is. You know that he has goodness. You know that he has mercy. You know that he is for you. You know that he wants your happiness. And that has allowed you a freedom and discernment to say, God would never force me into something that I don't want, right? Like if I became a sister, it would be because I wanted to, and I found joy there, right? Eliza, it wasn't like God's forcing, he's kicking and screaming into the convent. He's going to lock the door and you can never get out. No, like he loves you. Yeah, he wants your happiness. And that knowledge of who God is gave you that freedom to discern because you felt safe in that discernment. And that thread of who he is, and you juxtaposed it a lot with like who he's not, right? Like he's not just some tyrant that's going to force you to do something. He's not just a slave driver who's going to like demand something awful of you. No, he's for you. He's a father. He loves you. So where would you say that the two of you got that sense of who God is in his goodness, in his fatherly heart for you?
You go first.
I wouldn't say there's a specific moment necessarily. It definitely, I mean, gradually as you grow in holiness, I would say I came to more of an understanding. But I would say a big period where I grew an understanding of that was after I graduated college. I graduated during COVID, and I have a degree in tourism, which
my goodness.
No jobs.
No jobs.
Wow. Wow.
No jobs. So,
but you did find Lord blessed you with a job.
I did find a job. I did not intend to sail professionally. The reason I do that is because during COVID, that was the job I found. In Florida, they didn't really have very many lockdowns or anything there, so it was a little easier. That's why I moved down there. But I moved down there. I lived in a smallish town right on the beach, and it was great. I got to go to the beach, and it was beautiful, and I got to sail for work and all. But it was a town that was mainly retirees, and especially, I rented an apartment not knowing anything about the town. It just was a good deal on rent, and it was close to the beach. So I was like, perfect. Turns out it was in an area that was almost exclusively retirees, and most of them would leave for 6 months in the summer. So my neighborhood was very quiet, and it was a very lonely period of my life because it was very hard. Just in that town, it was very hard to meet young people. And it was especially very hard to meet
young Christians. And your Anglican church only had one other boy your age.
Yeah, and the Anglican church I went to was a really great church. The priest was amazing, and he definitely, I owe a lot to him. I met with him a lot, and he's a great person. And there was one other person my age at the church, and he was a great guy, but we just had very little in common, and we had very little interest in common, and we tried to build a friendship, but it just felt very forced because other than the fact that we went to the same church, we had absolutely no shared interest.
And so you
Sure.
started going to the young adult Catholic group in the town.
Yeah, so I started going to the young adult Catholic group
Spicy.
because
He wanted to become a better Anglican.
I just noticed that all the people in my life, who were Christians and like took their faith seriously, the ones who seemed the most in love with the Lord were all Catholic. And so I was like, I gotta see what is up with these people.
Wow. And you knew Eliza at this point. So she was on the list.
Yeah, Eliza and I were
who love
very
Jesus
good
and happen to be
friends.
Catholic.
She was,
Ooh, love it.
Yeah, she was one of my best friends at this point.
Aw.
And she was definitely one of these people who I had in mind. There were others too, but she was probably the foremost one though. And then I went to this group, and they were very welcoming to me. I did not feel like they were trying to convert me. It was funny when I showed up for the first time. They were like, "Yeah, we don't care that you're not Catholic, but you can't try to like convert us or whatever." And I was like, "I'm not going to. Like, that's fine." And they were like, "We won't try to convert you either." And I was like, "Cool." But they were all really they were
and
great.
They were normal.
They were great people, and they were very in love with the Lord. And they were, like we talk about, they also had interests outside of just being Catholic. Like like
you did movie things together, and
we'd go see movies together, and like one of them was really interested in fashion, like Eliza is, and she actually is. She designs wedding gowns now,
That's awesome.
And like there's
and so that group really showed you.
I lost the question a little bit. Sorry. That group really showed me like what it means to like really identify with the goodness of God and let it permeate throughout your entire life, not just like, when you go to church or when you pray or whatever.
And for me,
this is basically what you're doing on your digital apostolate on a large scale. Like,
I think
like
about,
he encountered the normalcy.
Yeah,
wow.
I think about those people a lot, and like the impact that
Bible study had.
that Bible study had on my life, and I hope that we can have a similar impact on other people.
Yeah,
you definitely are.
Thank you. For me, it was I was raised Catholic, and I learned I was blessed to go to a Catholic school that not only taught me theology but also nurtured a childlike faith. And I had a really blessed childhood at that little Catholic school. And things really fell into place in my understanding of what it meant to have a relationship with Jesus. When I was 16, I started being like actually involved in youth group and really going a lot, and was blessed with a youth minister who really showed us that it was just this growth from having the faith of a child to having the faith of, 16 is an adult, but it was old enough to be able to choose the faith for myself and not just go to mass because my mom was taking me, but go to mass because I was choosing that I wanted to. And I was blessed with a youth minister who cultivated that in us. I was going to our summer camp that we were raised going, which is an Anglican summer camp, and also volunteering extra weeks out there. And that summer, we both owe a lot to that summer camp of not only each other, and my sister and her fiance met there too.
Stop! Are you serious? That is cute.
And most of my friends also.
Most of his friends also met their spouse there. Yeah.
Holy smokes! How precious is this?
Not that it's just a marriage factory, but
there's something to be said for like being in nature together, recreating together, having joy together, and praying together. Yeah. Like that forms you, and then it gives you a pool of people to choose from. That's awesome. That is so awesome. I bet the camp directors would be pumped. That's awesome.
Yeah, we were blessed with wonderful camp directors who also cultivated an environment out there it was an Anglican summer camp, but they were very, very good about, we're not here to like get into the weeds of Anglican theology. We're more like that was open if you wanted it, but we are more here to bring the kids to Christ. And if that means they go home and go to a Catholic church or a Baptist church, they're still falling in love with Christ. And
Better
so
than no church.
it's better than no church. And so it was an environment that it was easy for me to fall more in love with the Lord as expressed in Catholicism, because it was not inherently an environment that was hostile to Catholicism. And there I also learned a lot about relationship with the Lord.
Nice. Okay. You mentioned that you didn't have a very relaxed posture growing up. You mentioned you said the word anxiety, but you didn't like go into anxiety. Would you say it was more of an anxious posture, Eliza, or would you say it was just more of like an intensity, like a personal intensity about it? Because this feels significant as you're discerning.
I mean, I have clinical anxiety, so there's something there.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's good. So do I, to be honest. Yes.
I have a memory of, I feel like that's an important disclaimer. I have a memory of sitting at my Catholic high school's chapel after school and holding my rosary and looking at the Eucharist and just crying because I was like, I don't know what my vote, and I mean, I'm 17 or 18, so I am young, but I'm proud of myself that I was thinking about these things.
Absolutely. I'm very proud of you.
And that's crying so much because I was just like, how will I know what the Lord is calling me to? Like, I feel really drawn to religious life, but I also like boys and I want to get asked to prom. And I remember our campus chaplain coming in because his office is right there, and he heard crying and brought me tissues and I don't remember what he said, but the feeling that I left that conversation with, it's always the feelings that really stick with you, even if you don't remember the words. And the feeling was of comfort and reassurance, and it's okay. You don't need to know, you don't need to know everything about at 17 or 18, and B, the Lord will just lead you where he desires you to go. Like Will said, I think I had this idea of discernment being this tricky puzzle I had to figure out all on my own and like brain and smarts my way into discerning. And it really took some just plain old good old fashioned maturity of lived experience to finally get it in my head and in my heart, to let what was already in my heart get into my head of, I can just let the Lord lead me and it will be okay.
Back to that relationship with him, right? You allowed him to inform those decisions. You're like, I can trust you. And the fact that came through a priest, right? That's really beautiful. That it wasn't like the priest was like, and you have to be celibate. So while you're in this vulnerable space, I'm going to lead you to the convent, right? No, he was like, follow the Lord, follow the Lord. You don't have to figure it out right now, but you can be safe and rest in him. Oh, I love that. Okay. So 2 more questions. My producer, I'm going to ask you to keep me on track. 2 more questions because I'm mindful of the time. Okay. So one of my favorite things that you both, even though it's technically Eliza, both of you I know have a buy-in on this, courageously share online, is about Will's chastity. You are so open about how Will does not look at porn. And as someone who does have an apostolate that's very centered around discerning marriage, I get so much conversation in my DMs about pornography use, about how common is it? Like, what can I expect as it's typically the women who their boyfriends look at it and they're struggling with like what that looks like. Is it even realistic to think that someone wouldn't? What is recovery, freedom, et cetera, look like? Is it possible that they just wouldn't look at it? You know, those sorts of dynamics. So I think it would be really helpful if you're willing, both of you, to just kind of talk about this, right? Like there are a lot of men who don't look at porn. They just don't talk about it on the internet, right? So it seems like it's not as common. And I guess objectively in the world, it would be less common to find a man who has that kind of integrated chastity, who is free. But it's not like you're the only person, Will. You're not the only person in the whole world who doesn't look at porn. But you guys have this courage to talk about it. And I do notice, we talked a little bit before we started, that you are very, very good about managing your Instagram comments, Eliza. But I see maybe before, because I'm looking at him and I'm fascinated by this, that there are people who really hate on you guys. You know, he's lying to you and there's no way that's true. And you're so deceived. And like all of this like character shaming. So I'm curious, I'm going to leave it an open question and kind of let the Holy Spirit guide where the 2 of you want to share. Because I know this is a sensitive topic that you're so courageously sharing online. I would love to hear just generally your thoughts on this. Give you some space to talk more about it.
I'll start from where I'm coming from, which is a long time ago when I was young, I dated someone who habitually consumed porn. I was very young. I knew that porn exists, and I was so young that, and my parents, bless them, did an excellent job shielding me and my sister from stuff on the internet, and I feel like it's a lot more, parents have a lot more awareness about it now than they did when we were teenagers and young people. But my parents did have that awareness, and so my sister and I were not exposed, praise Jesus. And at this point, I thought that I knew porn existed, like, as a fact of life, but I did not know it was as common as it is. I also did not understand when I was dating this person, and a few months in, I learned of his habitual porn consumption. I did not understand its addictive nature. And I'm not going to make a sweeping claim that, he definitely was addicted or not, because I don't think that's fair. But it was a habitual consumption, and I did not, in my youth and all the little I knew, I also did not understand that it takes serious dedication to break away from it. But also that I did not have to date somebody who habitually consumed it. I don't think that I really think it was just a lack of maturity on my own part. Not that I mean to beat myself up, but I was just young and didn't know a lot about the topic. And I thought that I was being like a heroic girlfriend for keeping on dating him and waiting for him to break free from this habitual consumption. And I just did not understand that it was not bad of me it would not have been bad of me if I said this is a deal breaker and broke up with him. Right. And another thing though that I regret is that he was like, please don't tell anybody about this. Like, I'm embarrassed by it. Which is, and I think it is fair that he was embarrassed by it and didn't want the whole world to know. However, if I had even just told one friend or my mom, they would have said, one good friend or my mother, they would have said, you need to get out of that relationship. That relationship is not one that, and if that relationship, with this being in that relationship, that is not a healthy situation and safe situation. If I had just told one person,
and him thinking that staying in the darkness is better for him. Like, that's what breaks my heart. Like, don't tell anyone. Him thinking that being in the darkness is going to help. No, bring the light of Christ into that so you can move toward freedom, young man. Ooh,
yes. Okay. And I just did, and my mom also did a great job raising us on like touch safety and everything like that. And so there were so many other red flags that I had already known to look out for and leave a relationship if they were present, but I just did not know. And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about talking about it, because I stayed in that relationship for a long time when I could and was just had these bouts of like being happy in the moments where I was just ignoring the fact that this was true in his life, and then being devastatedly sad. Whenever the topic came up, whenever he had said that he was breaking free and working on it, but then I learned that he relapsed. After that, there was a lot of therapy involved. There was therapy on my call. Therapy of regular talk therapy that I was going to one-on-one. There was a therapy program my mom also encouraged me to enter, and I did, called Bloom for Catholic Women. And they have a secular version too and their whole thing is just general betrayal trauma, which includes partner's porn use.
Infidelity, which this falls under. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there was a lot of therapy going along. There were so many hours in the Adoration Chapel just sobbing. There were long stretches of feeling like I did not know how I would ever trust a man again in my life.
Understandable.
But a lot of so much beautiful, beautiful healing from the Lord, thanks to his goodness and thanks to therapy, clinical, legit therapy, and thanks to friends and family who really, really buoyed me through that hard time. And praise be to Jesus, by the time I was discerning with the Sisters of Life, it was from a place of freedom and not from a place of, I just want to run away to a convent and because I never want to see a man again. Even though there were times where I wanted to run away to a convent to never see a man again. But thankfully, I did not. A good convent
wouldn't accept you if you were just running from marriage, if you weren't free to say yes to celibacy. Yeah.
Yes.
Could you mention, you said you were younger. Were you in high school or college during this?
I don't want to share to protect his
Fair enough.
privacy.
That's fine.
But I was young. I was
Young,
younger
yeah.
than having Will in my life, obviously.
Yes.
And where was I going with that? So that is why it's really, really passionate to me, because of all the hurt and all the time and effort and labor it took to be buoyed and healing by the Lord, and also his hands working through therapy and through my friends who were taking such good care of me. And so from there moving forward, I was just like, I will not date someone who habitually consumes porn. I will not date someone who consumes any porn at all. Like it wasn't I will allow just a little bit, because it finally clicked into my brain. Porn is infidelity. Just because it's not a woman physically in your bed doesn't mean it's not infidelity. And that kind of thought process was one that it's so easy for me to say now, but it took me a long time to give myself permission to say that. I think for a while I was like, oh, it's not real. And it's not real betrayal because it's not a physical woman, but it is still real betrayal. And I want everyone listening to understand that it is still very, very, very real betrayal. And so it was like, I would never be okay with dating a guy who kissed another girl sometimes, or like only on the weekends. So why would I be okay with dating somebody who watched porn sometimes or only on the weekends or whatever? It was no porn whatsoever. And Will knew that when we were friends. And knew that, well, I mean, you just knew that well before we started dating. You knew that that was the expectation. And I did, after that all happened, I did have an experience of dating a really sweet guy who I became friends with. He learned that I had that standard, but he was still, and he had been trying to break free from habitually consuming porn for a long time. But hearing how affected I was by it, I think he had said to me later that he had never really realized that it doesn't just affect him and his soul and his mental health. It also affects the way he sees women around him in this world and the way he is able to enter into a future relationship. And so even though he wanted to, he did not date me until he did not even ask me out or express any interest in me until he was porn free, which I really, even though that relationship did not work out, I really respect and appreciate that he didn't try to tangle me in with the thing that he knew was a very firm boundary. And you didn't have a situation of like, oh, I have to wait until I am free of it to ask Eliza out. It wasn't exactly like that, but you just already knew that that was the standard. I want to hear what you have to say.
It's a tricky thing that I wish people would talk about more openly, because I mean, you are right that there are lots of men who do not habitually watch pornography, but there are very few men who have never seen it.
Absolutely.
And I think that something that I wish that people would know is, like, just because you have seen it in the past, or maybe it even was a habit in the past, or maybe it was an addiction in the past, like, that doesn't make you a bad person. Like, it is a bad thing. I don't want to suggest that it's not as bad as it is, because it is, but it's like, it is something that many, many men, myself included, were introduced to, like, way younger than we understood. And like, a lot of times you don't even like ask for it. Like, it just kind of gets inserted into your life.
Yes, absolutely.
Before you're old enough to understand what it is, or understand that it's bad, or learn how to, like, kind of have the self-control that you need. And so something that,
because your brain isn't fully developed.
Because your brain's not fully developed, and it's this,
and
like,
no one told you. If you knew to be on the lookout for
no one
it,
told you,
then it would be different.
It's interesting because I see all these girls in Eliza's comments being like, oh, how can I ever find a man who doesn't watch porn? And, like, they're definitely out there. But I would say you also I do think, like, you have to have a reasonable expectation too. Like, if you want to hold the standard of you will only date or marry someone who has never looked at porn. Like, that's okay. That's a standard that you can have for yourself.
But I would say it is a little unfair because often it's not it's not guys' fault.
Yeah,
because they were shown it when they were or just stumbled across it on the internet when they were really little. But it is reasonable to hold the standard of, if this is part of your past, there's only grace and healing and mercy from the Lord for you, and you need to take care of yourself to break free and do what is necessary to break free from that habitual consumption. But it doesn't mean that you are just like junk goods or too far gone just because that was a part of your past, even though you have since reclaimed your chastity with the Lord and sought the necessary healing to break free.
Yeah, I'm so glad you made that distinction. Yes.
and I just think it really is no different from anything else, you know. Like if you are, and it goes for men and women. Like if Eliza had slept with other men in the past, but had, you know, didn't do that anymore and had repented of that, like, that's fine. I wouldn't care. Like, there's forgiveness. But if we had been dating or engaged and I found out that she was like
actively
regularly doing that, I'd be like, yeah, I don't want this. And it doesn't even have to be like sexual, like, you know, if someone is like alcoholism or any addiction, like it's one thing for that to be something in your past. And I mean, you might relapse sometimes, and that's not a good thing, but there's a distinction between that and like a habitual, like a habit that is part of your life that you're not like working to get rid of and not doing everything you can to get rid of it.
There's also, you definitely should not, this kind of a side note, it is not realistic to expect that just because you start dating somebody, you will suddenly no longer have an appetite for porn, because it is addictive. And I'm not in a position to say you are addicted and you are not, this person's addicted, this person is not addicted. However, just because you're dating somebody doesn't mean the appetite goes away. And you can't put that expectation on the person.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't put that expectation on the person you are dating. You need to already have found freedom in the Lord and with the necessary resources to free yourself before you enter into a relationship.
I think that's generally, like, if I'm giving general advice, which I don't do super often, but I sometimes will get people asking for general advice, like in my DMs and stuff. My general posture is, if they are actively working to break free, that is a very different posture than, I'm doing this thing, don't tell any other soul. Like, I'm working on it on my own, but don't tell anybody. And one, I think, is more able to discern marriage and would allow for some women to be able to partner with them as they're on their healing journey and enter into marriage. The other one, the like, keep it in the dark, don't tell anyone, I'm so ashamed, I'm just shackled, I can't even think about exposing this to the light. That person is absolutely not ready to get married. Like, that person absolutely needs to be making progress in freedom and healing, or towards freedom and healing, before they're ready to say yes to a marriage. And I also want to say that your example, Eliza, is such a perfect display of the mercy of God, because you were deeply injured by this particular wound. And you were like, I need a man that has total freedom before I marry him. And the Lord was like, yeah, you do. Here you go. Like, I'm going to call you to someone who has that freedom. Whereas some women they don't like it, you know, they're like uncomfortable with it, but they don't have the kind of intense wound that would require total sobriety before marriage. And this is where general advice isn't always helpful, because God loves the individual person, right? Your individual story needed this particular kind of lived chastity, and he gave it to you. Like, that's what you needed. And so you were open about that, and the Lord gave it to you. And so if women are watching and they're like, I'm uncomfortable with this, but I'm open to accompanying this man on this journey, that's a very different situation than, my heart has been so broken and I need total freedom, or I need total sobriety, right? And so that's where it becomes deeply personal. And a content creator on the internet is not going to be able to give you advice about this. You need someone in your real life who knows you, who knows your heart, who knows your past. But I love that distinction, because your heart had been broken in this way. The Lord allowed you to carry this cross on behalf of this person's healing and conversion. I mean, I'm sure you guys pray for this man and for his freedom and healing. And there's a gift in having dated someone and knowing someone's deep, dark stuff, and you can intercede before the Lord for him. But he also allowed you to meet someone that you felt totally safe with because you were able to be honest about what you needed. Like, that is so beautiful. Okay, we're nearing time. So I have one more question. This is the question that I always end with. If you guys could give one piece of very practical advice that someone watching this could implement into their life today to discern marriage well, what would it be? Super practical.
Pray every day.
Nice.
And the prayer, I don't mean reciting a rosary with a posture of I need to accomplish this many Hail Marys and like I am performing the action and doing like I am doing the right thing, I'm doing the Catholic thing. Like, this is not a hate comment on the rosary. The rosary is amazing and beautiful. It's a meditation tool. It's not just saying
check my list.
It's not just saying the Hail Marys and thinking about the mysteries. It opens up an opportunity for us to deeply, deeply encounter relationship with the Lord. And so when I say pray every day, I mean take time and more time than you feel like you can even give. As Mother Teresa has a funny quote where she says, it essentially what she said was, I always do 1 holy hour a day. If on busy days I do 2. And we are not, we are lay people. It is not realistic for every lay person to hold themselves to that standard. And I don't want to instill a spirit of scrupulosity in anyone here. But it is wonderful. That relationship with the Lord is only cultivated through prayer that is dedicated in time spent with him, and you're not always going to feel him speak to you and you won't always feel close to him, but just setting aside that time is time spent with him still. Like, it's still quality time I spend with Will, even if we're not talking, if we're just sitting together and enjoying each other's presence. And plenty of times it is like that. And there just cannot be discernment without already having a relationship with Jesus. And prayer isn't just about your relationship with him. Prayer is your relationship with him. And you don't have a relationship with him if you don't pray. So pray every day.
I love it. And this is one of those things I think single people who are discerning marriage have more time for than they think. Like you were saying, Will, once you're married, your time isn't your own. Once you're a parent, your time really isn't your own. But when you're single and discerning marriage, I mean, you can give if you're really busy, give another 15 minutes, right? That you would have otherwise spent scrolling or watching a show, like, and maybe not a whole hour because you're not a celibate like Mama T, but you could give another 15 minutes beyond what you normally do if you're really busy and stressed. I love that. Will, what are your thoughts? Super practical tip.
I would say, assuming that you are doing what Eliza just said, I would say pay attention to what you want. Like, if you are someone if you are praying and really seeking after the will of God, like, the Lord is going to align your desires with his. And I'm sure that there are some people who get called to the priesthood or marriage or whatever and don't want to. I'm sure there are some, but I mean, most people, like, your vocation should be a joyful thing, and it should be something that you want. And like, if you're trying to discern marriage and you're praying a lot and there's, this girl or this guy you really like, go on a date with them and see what happens. Like, the worst comes to worst, you just go on a date and, it's not, you find out that that's not where the Lord is leading you, but you'll never know if you don't do it. I just, like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of ways you can find your vocation, but you can't find it by just thinking about it a lot. Like, you have to go do something, and even if it's not necessarily, like, even if it ends up not leading you in the, like, in the right direction per se toward your vocation, if you go and the door is closed, then that still is something you've learned, and that still is one step closer, because now you have one less direction to go in, one fewer direction.
I would honestly say that's good discernment, right? Like, approaching something, taking an action, and then the answer being no or a door closed, that's just as successful of a discernment as the answer being yes.
Exactly.
So that's great advice. Awesome. Thank y'all so much. Eliza, where can people find you?
I'm at Elizawritesthings on Instagram and on Substack.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank y'all so much. Will, do you have anywhere anyone can find you? Do you want to be found on the internet?
No. You can find me on Eliza Writes Things at Instagram, and sometimes she talks about me on Substack.
Making cameos. So cute. Awesome. Well, I imagine if people had a question for you, Will, they could just DM Eliza and she can filter them for you.
Yeah, they can do that. And I mean, she puts me on, sometimes we do like question and answer together on
every once a month on Substack, we do a Q&A together.
Y'all. Okay, so get on her Substack if you want access to Will. There you go. Awesome. Thank y'all so much. It was such a joy. This was such a
delight.
It was great to meet you.
Elizabeth.
It's great to meet
y'all too. God bless you. And all of you watching, I hope you loved this as much as I did. They are so precious. It makes me so happy. Until next time, stay close to the heart of Jesus and be not afraid. Bye.